Hello and welcome. I'm Prasanthi Naidu, founder of healthjobhub.com. Thank you for joining me this morning with coffee with Serge Boudreau, the founder of the Recruitment Flex podcast. Good morning, Serge. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Prasanthi? Where's your coffee?
you know, I was just brewing it. It's on the kettle and it's going to be coming really soon.
We can't have coffee with Prasanthi Serge without coffee. Come on.
I was just too excited to start the show, Serge. This
Oh,
is
okay. That's
priority.
great.
To talk to you early in the morning is what it is about, and coffee is just the bonus. Serge, I just want
There
to
you go.
dive right into it this morning. This is such a relevant hot topic right now, talent metrics, and especially measuring retention. I'd love to get your thoughts about it. Do you think, is this the one key metric employers, big and small, clinics, big healthcare organizations should be looking at, and why?
Well, and when it comes to recruitment, there's a lot of, or HR metrics or HR recruitment metrics, there's a lot that you can look at. And when I look at recruitment metrics, and if we're talking about small business and even larger business, I'm like, you need to start somewhere. And I think the first place that you potentially should start is with actually measuring your retention. So actually calculating your turnover rate, because your turnover rate and retention tells a lot about how your business is doing. And a couple of things with that is, if you've got a lot of people leaving, there's obviously something fundamentally wrong in either your recruitment process, you're hiring the wrong people, or you're promising things that actually don't come to fruition, so people leave. Or it could also be the environment that the people are working in is not conducive to what they want to do. And actually, I hate to say this, but you might have a bad place to work for. So I think knowing is the first thing you should do. So you definitely should be looking at what your turnover rate and your retention looks like.
And tell me, Serge, practically, how do employers do that? How do they know what to look for, especially in retention and turnover rate? Practically.
Yeah. Well, I think in the world of Google, there's so many ways you can actually go look and figure out how to calculate it. But I wanted to give you a little bit of an example. So, the first thing that you probably should look at is your turnover rate, and that gives you really a picture of health of are people leaving or and what that number looks like. Then you can start finding out what the root cause is. So, I'll give you a really simple formula. Actually, you can go and Google, take a look at just turnover rate. So basically, how you calculate an annual turnover rate is you take how many employees that you had at the start of the year, how many employees you had at the end. Then you basically take how many people have left. So let's use the example. So say you had 5 people leave and you had 20 people at the start of the year, you had 15 at the end. You take that 20 plus 15, that's 35. Take the 5, divide it by 35, and that gives you a number. And then you now have to multiply that by 100%. So in the example that I'm telling you right here, you're going to have a 14% turnover rate. So do go research what is the turnover rate in your industry and what the average is. At 14%, you're usually in a really good shape. Like turnover rate that starts to really get scary, and again, the industries are very different. So obviously, retail is going to be way higher than say in an office environment. But if you're creeping to 20 to 30%, you might have some issues that you have to take a look at.
No, 100%. This is so relevant in Alberta right now. I don't know if you've heard the news, but there's lots of physicians who are considering leaving their practices and exiting the province because of the dispute between the Alberta Medical Association and the Alberta government in relation to many different issues. Among others is physician pay. And clinics are in a difficult situation right now. It's a challenge for them, and they need to start thinking about planning for if and when their physicians do leave, what's going to happen, to healthcare delivery to their patients, what's going to be happening, with how they start getting new physicians into those roles. And that's where healthjobhub.com becomes so relevant, because we can definitely help in, trying to recruit for them. But before we even start that, clinics, they are aware of the problem. But how else, Serge, can you give them advice on how they could actually, put some practical action plans to assess how bad the situation is, and what they should do going forward to maybe prepare and plan?
Yeah, and if we look at the example for Alberta physician, that one's a really tough one because there's so many outlying factors that clinics don't have a lot of control. So obviously with the disputes with the government. So, but if you look at your overall staffing and how you plan for it, it's really, I think it's, as any employer should do, is a lot of pulse checks with your employees, especially in this very trying time where there's a lot of anxiety over so many different things. But just taking like clinics is a perfect example with COVID. There's obviously the anxiety of people coming in potentially. Employees on the front line are at risk, and that's something that there is a lot of anxiety. So I think, and I'll put this across the board with any employer, is taking care of your people is critical. So finding what those drivers are for them and trying to work with them. An example of that, some people have kids, they need to have more flexible work hours. So that's one of the things you can look at. If we look at the overall, all the industries and how the world of work has changed, is I think you have to stop calculating of how long people are actually at their desks and
Mhm.
focusing on outcomes. What are
Mhm.
those metrics? How are people delivering? Because as we know, there are people that deliver more work in 4 hours than people do in a week.
Mhm.
So really focusing on those people and making sure they're delivering, but giving them that flexibility. I think flexibility is one of the things that people are trying to balance with. Obviously, now with kids going to school,
Mhm.
there's so many things out there that compassion from the employer goes a long way.
100%. And that nicely integrates into the future of work and employee retention. I know a lot of organizations are battling, just even surviving outside of
Yeah.
healthcare, and it's not a key metric to them. But when we focus heavily on healthcare, this is a huge topic, because especially now during a pandemic, it becomes so relevant, keeping those people, making sure that they are happy to be able to, deliver the wider service, which is in huge demand by, everybody in the population that they're living in. So yeah, like Serge, in relation to future of work and retention, what is your advice for employers?
Well, and I think this goes across every industry. It's figuring out how people want to work and making it convenient for them. So, technology has been such a big driver, and I unfortunately am not seeing a lot of organizations really step up the game as far as next steps when it comes to leveraging technology in work. Like I still see organizations using very old technology. So the minute that the pandemic hit, a lot of office workers, a lot of companies were scrambling to get people the ability to work from home. So I think that's going to be interesting. But I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to one thing: is listening to your employees. Obviously, you run a business and you need to be profitable, but part of being profitable is not having people leave, keeping those top people within your organization. So having those pulse checks, having a lot of conversations. If people do leave, I do strongly recommend that you do those exit interviews, and maybe you do it with a third party or someone that's not directly involved.
Mhm.
So hopefully you can get some insights, and with the insights, that gives you the ability to adjust to what your employees are saying. So if that's more better technology to work, is it more flexible hours? Is it the ability to drop off their kids at home? Like everyone has different things that affect their work environment. So that I think would be my best advice: is always listen to people you work with.
Brilliant. Thank you, Serge. So, this has been amazing having you on the show this morning. Tell me, what's the plans for the rest of the day? Are you like fully booked?
I am fully booked actually right after this to almost 5 o'clock. So got a lot going on. But how about yourself? A lot going on in your world?
Oh, yes, 100%. I have the kids to get ready and get them online for school this morning and get back to work. So thank you as always. Always a pleasure. Have a great day, Serge.
Have a great day.